Oh, I know now why. Could be here. Okay. Oh, forgetting this. Okay, okay. So everything is okay with this one. I'm going to start the stage now to start the event. This is going to notify everybody. And are you guys ready? Dimars, Krishon?
Yep.
Okay, okay. Well, here we are. We are starting now. So hello everybody to tonight's debate between Dimars and Krishon. The debate topic is a very simple and easy one for everybody to understand. The Christian God is the necessary precondition for the intelligibility of human experience. Uh, Fighting for the affirmative is going to be P. Mars, and for the negation of this one is going to be Krishon. I'm your host, Daniel Hume, and we're going to go into the debate. The format is going to be 5-minute intros, 15 minutes each of cross examination, and up to 30 minutes of open discussion, 5-minute closings, and then audience Q&A, if any. PMARS, since you're in the affirmative, you're going to start this, so take it away. Whenever you start talking, I will start the timer.
Okay. So the resolution here is that the Christian God is the necessary precondition for the intelligibility of human experience. And I guess first we should clarify the terms of the resolution. So Christian God, not arguing for a generic God, not Islam, not Mormonism specifically, triune, personal, sovereign, immutable, all the omnis, the God of the Bible, who reveals himself in human history. What's a necessary precondition? So without this being true, we're arguing that without the Christian God, intelligibility cannot exist at all. So we're not saying it's helpful, right? We're saying like literally necessary precondition. Intelligibility of human experience. What do we mean by that? We're saying we have the ability to have this ordered, meaningful, non-arbitrary thought or perception about reality, and we can actually know reality. We're not just guessing. So like for intelligibility, you would have to defeat like skeptical scenarios. Like there's one problem might talk about is like the problem of the one of the many or the problem of induction. And so basically the argument has to do with we all have like a starting point or an ultimate commitment about how we view the world and reality. And our ultimate commitments about reality are going to shape what we consider like a valid or possible explanation for anything. And so we have to deal with these like underlying foundations to really so mad because that's where we disagree in a debate. We want to talk about where our worldviews clash, where the disagreements are. And when we're talking about Christianity versus any non-Christian worldview, we're clashing at the starting point. Because as Christians, we're going to start with God's revealed word in the Bible. The Bible is going to be my foundational starting point for knowledge, for reality, for ethics. And so if you don't start with the Bible, well, that's where we disagree. You would have some other starting point, like perhaps you're an empiricist and you start reason from the material world, or perhaps you're a rationalist and you start reasoning with your own human reason. And so we would have to show that the entailment of your starting point is going to lead to like some absurdity. And therefore, since if we stand on the Christian starting point, we don't have these issues that we could ground logic, that knowledge is possible, the world is intelligible, then due to the impossibility of the contrary, because you would have to assume the world is intelligible to even deny the Christian God. Therefore, the Christian God is going to obtain. So this is sort of the reasoning here. And maybe to think about this more simply, we could think of an analogy of like a movie. So like A fact is only going to be like intelligible within some like rational context. You're going to need like ultimate rational context to like make truth claims, say things good. So think about a movie, right? If you isolate a scene, if you walk into the middle of a movie and you just isolate one scene, completely disconnected from the rest of the movie, there would be no like context to really make the scene intelligible. Like, what are the relationships with these characters? We have no idea. Like, who are they in the matrix in the scene? Are they in the physical world? Are they on a planet Earth? Are they on a? Is it taking place in a different time period? It'd be just a total guessing game. So we need sort of the whole narrative. Maybe politics can make this is more clear. In politics, left wing media and right wing media, or with slant and bias, they'll take the same fact, and within their different narratives, the same fact is going to have totally different meaning. And so, what we're asking the question here today is like, what narrative can make any fact intelligible at all? We're going to need things like
20 seconds.
30 seconds.
20.
Oh, 20 seconds. Okay. Well, so what I'm going to argue here today is that only the Christian narrative can provide ultimate context, so facts are ultimately meaningful and intelligible. And to deny that ultimate context, any fact would ultimately be unintelligible. Any experience.
Okay, thank you very much. That was it for your opening remarks, remarks. Thank you very much. And Krishan, you are next. I will start the timer as soon as you start talking.
Oh, howdy everyone. I'm Krishan. Thank you to P. Mars for the debate, and thank you to Daniel Hume for hosting. So the proposition is the Christian God is the necessary precondition for the intelligibility of human experience. I think that this is an insanely high bar to set for yourself, and give P. Mars some credit for not settling for a lesser proposition, because this is what he actually holds to and believes. So props to him for representing it, right? But like I said, this is going to be a very hard bar to meet, because he's not just trying to defeat atheism. He's not trying to defeat some kind of reductive materialism or anything like that. He is asserting, and he even admitted so, in his opening, that it's only the Christian God and the Christian narrative that can be the necessary precondition for the intelligibility of the human experience, right? So I think that this debate really hinges on two things, right? It hinges on intelligibility and human experience. We have human experience. I think that this is undeniable by everyone, right? Unless you're trying to tell me that you aren't experiencing right now, or that you aren't a human in some capacity. I think it's pretty undeniable that we all have human experience, right? So really, it just hinges on intelligibility, right? Uh, Mars and I went over this before the debate, and he gave me some examples on what he means, right? He says, when we say reality is intelligible, we mean our thoughts can correspond to the world. Logic actually applies to what exists. Words have stable meaning. Cause and effect is reliable. We can know things in a non-arbitrary way. And put simply, and I love this part, right? Because I think this is a good way to put it. Put simply, the world isn't chaos; it's understandable. So, what would we need for human experience to be intelligible? We would need an external world. We would need to be able to perceive that external world, and we would need the capacity for intelligence. I'm curious to see if Primars wants to argue against either of those three things, right? I think denying the external world is going to be some crazy kind of skepticism. I think that saying we can't perceive the external world is pretty much the same thing, right? uh, and then there's the idea that we don't have the capacity for intelligence. Uh, I'm not sure how you're going to deny any of these three, right? And as for like some kind of explanation as to how we have experience, intelligence, I'd be pretty happy with using an evolutionary explanation, right? I think it's very obvious when you look at the animals in the world that inhabit the world, that having great intelligence is an incredibly vital tool for survival. Arguably the most important tool, as we can see that by far the most intelligent animals that inhabit the earth, humankind, have grown to thrive and be the animals that dominate the planet, right? For better or for worse. um, let's see. So some of my questions that I'll ask you, Mars, is, well, why is God required in this picture? why does it have to be the Christian God, right? Like, if we want to argue that there is some that you need some kind of supernatural being for intelligibility, like, okay, I still think that that's going to be hard to prove, but I think it's going to be 10,000 times harder to prove that not only does there have to be a supernatural being, but that supernatural being must be triune. His human incarnation must be born in Bethlehem. He had to be brought gold, frankincense, and myrrh in order for there to be intelligibility. Like, these things are just starting to sound absolutely ridiculous on their surface. And I'm going to be happy to get more into them. I think that P. Mars asserts that if reality is intelligible, you need a foundation. I think P. Mars needs to provide an argument for this. I don't see why I should accept that at face value. So I think he'll need to present an argument, because foundationalism is not something that I understand is accepted wide scale by philosophers. Uh, it really seems to me to be presuppositional apologists that are the main people advocating for foundationalism, right? To say that you need to build your worldview brick by brick, and that it has to start with this one ultimate foundational brick is a position that I'd like to see an argument for. I think that a lot of the things that P. Mars is going to ask me about my view are going to boil down to use of language, right? When it comes to like the laws of logic, or why mathematics is able to exist, and things that precepts like to call eternal truths and things like that. I think that a lot of this really just boils down to language and the way that we use language, right? Um, but I'm happy to get into the cross exam and see
20
how it goes.
seconds.
Thank you. Happy to.
Okay, well, okay, thank you. That was it. Now you guys have 50 minutes each of cross-examination. We're also going to start with you, P. Mars, and I will start the timer as soon as you say your first word.
Okay. So do you think that your beliefs should be like internally consistent and avoid like self-contradiction?
Yep.
And should we live in ways that are consistent with our beliefs?
I'm less concerned about that one. I'm fine with hypocrisy.
Really?
Yeah,
So,
like, I don't think that we should eat factory farmed meat, but I have a burrito on my desk from a factory farmed animal that I'm going to eat today.
really? Well, I mean, usually in a debate where like we shouldn't like contradict ourselves. Like that's kind of like the idea. So, for example, like if there was no objective truth, there's really like no point to like debate, right?
Would you? I don't know. To be
You
honest, I
don't
don't know.
know? Well, if every, I mean,
But
if at the, yeah,
I think that we could debate subjective things. Like, if we want to debate whether what movie we think is the best, we could have a debate about that. But I don't think there's an objective truth about what the best movie is.
right. So it would be pointless because at the end of the debate, we're both right, even though we contradict. So it doesn't really like, we're not, that's not like intelligible, right?
I don't see how it's not.
Because like,
Intelligibility is just being capable of being understood or comprehended, and I don't see why people can't comprehend a debate about what the best movie is.
because if, yeah, but it can't be that like there's a contradiction, right? Like it can't,
But I agree that, like, within your own thoughts, right, you shouldn't hold to two contradictory statements, right? The part where I said it was okay is between thinking one thing and acting in a different way, right? Like, I think hypocrisy is kind of unavoidable. I think everyone is a hypocrite to some degree.
okay, but like I asked, like, ought we, should we be consistent?
I don't know.
You don't know.
Mhm.
Well,
Like
like,
I said, like, within our, like, the thoughts, the beliefs that we hold, I think that you should strive to have those be consistent, right? If you believe P and then someone convinces you of not P, you got a problem and you're gonna have to ditch one of those,
well,
right?
when
But
you
if someone
make,
convinces you of P and you act in a way in accordance with not P, I don't see necessarily what the issue is.
well, I don't know, like, say you argue with someone, don't you think someone ought believe your argument?
I would hope that they would, but I don't think that they're like morally compelled in any way.
Well, that's gonna entail like, so there'd be a contradiction. Like, you think it makes sense to like argue with someone that this is true, but then, oh, you shouldn't believe my argument at the end of your argument? Wouldn't that be sort of like undermine the whole?
That
What's
would
the
be
point?
weird. Yeah, I agree.
All right, so that's why I'm saying it's like inconsistent. So like the very act of debating, you're gonna assume there's like obligations that, like, if the form of the argument is correct and the premises are true, that the conclusion you would be obligated to believe the conclusion, right?
I would agree with that statement that like if you are shown true premises and there's a conclusion that logically follows, that you definitely are compelled on
Right.
some way to
Well,
believe that.
that's what I'm
It's just that when
saying.
you say ought, I think about morality, right? I don't think that it's like
It is
I don't
though.
think this is a question of
It
morality.
is a question of morality because
Okay.
to even like argue, we're saying that there's these rules that are bind. For example, like I can't be arbitrary or contradict. So there's these rules that are like binding on our minds. But where does that come from? I'm saying like ultimately you're going to need Jesus, who's object as opposed to any other guy, because Jesus is in history, um, because he would decide who. Like so, in my view, Jesus decides. If we disagree, Jesus ultimately decides who's right. In your view, who ultimately or what ultimately decides what's right or what
Are you
person's
talking
right? If two
are we
people
talking
did,
about a subjective matter or an objective matter? If it's subjective,
well,
it's going to be indexed to the
well,
opinions of
yeah,
some agents.
well, it doesn't even make sense to really debate subjectively. It doesn't even make sense. So, but like, so like,
Okay,
yeah, we're
sure.
talking about like whatever fact of the world, and we disagree.
Right.
What
Okay, in
ultimately
that
would
case, the
decide?
truth maker would be the facts of the world.
Okay, but that's gonna entail a contradiction, right? Because um, is that fact in the world that the truth make that the ultimate arbiter is that empirically like that your standard it can't uh, prove itself, right? Because like, is your standard empirical?
I'm not sure what you mean by my standard,
Your
right? Like,
ultimate
if the question
standard,
is,
you said, was like we appeal to nature to
well,
set. If some
what I
people
said was that
disagree,
for
we
questions
we
of,
appeal to
I'm
the
sorry, go ahead.
material world. You're saying if we disagree, we appeal to like the facts of the world.
Yeah, like if the question is about the world, right?
Is that a
We're
fact
having a
of the
debate
world?
about some fact of the world. The
But
truth maker would be the facts.
is that a fact of the world?
Uh, what specifically?
Your ultimate standard when two people disagree is to appeal to the facts of the world. But is that a fact of the world?
Um, no, I'm telling you my standard, right? What I use, right? So
I
this is a
know.
subjective opinion. You're asking Krishan what Krishan does, right? So it's
Well,
not going to be an objective fact of the
so
world.
when
It's
we
going to be a
debate,
subjective.
you're just assuming that the debate's intelligible. You have no account given your own view that the debate's intelligible, do you?
Well, I don't think I assume it, right? Look, did I assume that everything you were going to say today was intelligible? I'm going to be honest, P Mars. I did not assume that,
But
right? But I came to the debate and I heard that you're speaking English. I could understand the words you're saying. I was able to type them down. I could read
no,
them
but
back.
but to,
Clearly, this is intelligible so far.
yeah, but given your view, it's intelligible because my view is true. Given your view, though, if we do like a thought experiment, there's nothing that would ultimately there's no ultimate standard to decide who's right. So the whole debate would be like we would assume this debate's intelligible, but really the debate's arbitrary, right?
Well, I don't see that intelligible and arbitrary are mutually exclusive. It seems to me that
That's
it could be intelligible
well,
and
no.
then still be indexed to the opinions of agents, which would
What
make it arbitrary.
the rational narrative or context to that the debate takes place in would have no ultimate standard of truth, and so
Okay.
we wouldn't be talking about ultimately we're not talking about anything true. Like but we're acting like we are and like we can know the truth and it's intelligible. That would just be merely assumed as opposed to like your worldview would have no account for it. That's what we're debating. Like whose starting point can give an account so the debate isn't arbitrary.
Um, well, I think that you're the one who puts forward this thing about starting points, right? I'm just trying to
No.
show that
Intelligibility
human
doesn't
experience is
intelligibility
intelligible.
require unity? Because if
What do you mean by
nothing,
unity?
unity is when like there's a single source that connects everything together.
No.
But if ultimately nothing's connected together, then ultimately nothing's intelligible. because intelligibility relies on unity.
I don't see it that way.
It doesn't matter like how you see it, right? Because there's logical entailments, right? And so
I don't think it's shown to be logically entailed.
okay, so if no facts or events have connected, there's no ultimate connection between facts and events, then how is anything explained or intelligible?
Sure. Well, look, I think that things are connected. I think that there's causality
Yeah, but
in the
what
universe,
connects them?
and that's probably the thing that connects everything.
No,
But,
I'm
it
arguing.
shouldn't- the
I'm
point-
offering a candidate. Jesus connects them. What's your candidate?
Well, I'm pushing back at the idea that there needs to be this ultimate unity that connects.
But the debate has to do with
right?
whose worldview, whose starting point makes things intelligible. And without unity, connections between events and facts, we couldn't explain anything. Explanation presupposes a single unifying principle. You couldn't explain anything without one. So mine is Jesus. What's yours?
Look, like I said, I don't view things this way. I haven't been convinced by any
But
argument
it
that we
doesn't.
should view it this way.
It
But if
doesn't
I was
matter.
to
That's
appeal to
but
one
it's
thing, it would probably
irrelevant.
just
I'm
be the
not.
universe.
I'm not asking about your opinion. I'm saying that explanations require events to be connected, facts to be connected. That's unity. So how do you account for unity given your worldview, which denies God, the source of unity?
Well, I think that events are connected through causality to each other, right? And
What
like maybe
actualizes
if
the
we
unity?
were,
What's the single source of everything? You
I
know,
don't think that there is a single source.
well then there's no
I haven't
unity.
heard
Then
any
you
of the-
then you couldn't. Then nothing has connections, and you lose intelligibility. So you're just merely. Well,
Okay. Well,
that's
I
it. That's
understand
game
that this
over.
is your view, but you haven't presented any.
It's not
argument
about
for
a
why I
no.
should
It's
adopt
it's
that
not.
view.
I'm saying, given your view, I'm doing an internal critique. It's not my view. You're denying that there's a single source, but if there's no single source, there's no unity. If there's no unity, there's no intelligibility. That's not my view.
But that's your view.
That's not a view. That's logic. That's logical entailment.
I don't see the logical entailment.
But
Maybe that's a skill issue, right? Maybe I'm just losing the debate. Here,
oh my
right? But,
gosh.
maybe you could show me, or but that's fine. We can get that to my cross exam. But
Well, if ultimately there's nothing, there's no explanation, then you just have unexplained brute facts, right?
I think both of our worldviews are going to have unexplained brute facts.
What ultimately explains anything?
Brute
My
facts? Nothing explains.
I'm
brute facts. That's
saying
why they're
Jesus is the. Well, I don't. Brute facts is your view. That's not my view.
Okay.
My view is that God ultimately explains everything. So you say there's no ultimate explanation.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what I know what an explanation is. I'm not sure what an ultimate explanation is, right? And if it's the
This-
idea about tracing it back to the unity, I'm not convinced that
It's the
that is
thing that
necessary. And
connects
it's
everything.
not part of my worldview.
But then there's no big picture. So in your narrative, there's nothing that can connect anything together. So you would just you lose intelligibility because you're just assuming connections like a schizophrenic. For example, like Bertrand Russell. Did you know that he said if we can't solve the problem of induction, there's no difference between like sanity and insanity because you're
I think that's
schizophrenic.
an insane take.
But what he's pointing out, I mean, he's an atheist, famous philosopher, and he's pointing out that you're assuming connections that don't exist. Because you're assuming
Like I said,
go ahead.
I think that there are connections between things. I think that causality is a thing, and this connects
But
events.
it doesn't matter what you
and I think that there is like a.
It doesn't matter. Like thinking something doesn't make it true. Like I think God exists. That doesn't mean I win the debate, right? So,
Well, if you want me to just boldly assert things without saying I think, I could do that.
but
right?
given
I'm
your
just trying to tell you
view,
that this is.
according to people like Bertrand Russell, given your view, there's no account for like the problem of induction, and there never will
Well, I'm
be.
totally fine if Bertrand Russell does not share my view. That's totally fine.
Well, there's a lot of people like. What do you mean? But if all we have is like either empiricism or rationalism, Bertrand Russell says there's no explanation for the problem of induction. There's no account for it. And then so now you'd be like a insane person assuming connections that don't exist. Are you comfortable being insane?
Am I comfortable with Bertrand Russell thinking I'm insane? Yes.
It's
but I
not,
just want to also point out here that like.
But it's
I
like you're
think that you're
saying
asking me
it's
about my
it's like
personal
it's not like it's
feelings,
but it's not as if Bertrand Russell isn't making an argument. You're like acting like logical arguments or opinions. Do you understand there's a difference between an argument and opinion?
Yep.
Well, why aren't you dealing with the
What was-
argument? Why are you just acting like it's an
because you
opinion?
didn't present more. You told me Bertrand Russell's opinions.
The
that
problem
if
I
you
did
deny
present. Are you not
unity,
familiar with the
then you're
problem of?
insane.
Are you not familiar with the problem of induction? That's a famous argument.
I'm familiar with the problem of induction.
Yeah, there's no empirical justification for induction or rational justification. So what's your justification for induction?
Well, look, I think that I would use both of those things to justify it, but it's just that you and I probably have different notions of justification.
Okay, but that
If
now
by justification,
okay, but
you
now do
mean
you realize
ultimate
you're
grounding,
going
I don't ultimately
against the
ground you.
academic literature? You realize that?
Okay.
Well, you could be.
You
Why
realize
aren't
are
Why aren't you like becoming a famous philosopher and solving this problem, this perennial problem in philosophy? I don't understand. You should write a paper.
I mean, you can show me where in the philosophical literature it said that the Christian God is a necessary precondition for intelligibility.
No, I'm
of
not
human
talking.
experience.
I said the problem. We're talking about the problem of induction. It's a famous perennial problem for like empiricism and
Well, I think it's a
rationalism.
problem for everyone, right?
Right. Unless you adopt God's revelation. So would not if we accept God's word as infallible, would that not solve the problem?
I don't think so.
Okay, well, why not? If God orders the universe according to his will and then reveals to
1 minute
us.
left.
How is that
Because
how
if
is
I
that
can't
not
trust?
Yeah, but when you
If
say
I
you
can't trust in induction, I'm sorry. I think there's a little lag. Go ahead.
Yeah, well when you say you're saying you can't trust what God says or something?
Well, I'm just saying, if I can't trust induction, right, and then I have this experience of God telling me something, like maybe I can't trust my memory, right? Maybe I can't trust that I actually had that experience without induction, right? So then I could just discard it and say like, well, I can't get to the word of God
Okay,
because
but
I'm still, I'm still insane because I can't
Okay, but
ultimately ground.
you're refusing to step on my position and do an internal critique. You're just reasserting your view dogmatically. So you're not even giving it. You're being bad faith.
I thought you were asking me about my view.
10 seconds left.
Yeah, but I was asking you that like, would not my view solve the problem if God
No.
exists? It absolutely. If God exists and He orders the world
This is the time
and
for 50
reveals
minutes,
to
for
us. Well, can you just finish this one
Go
question?
ahead and finish. Yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
let's finish this one.
So if God exists, reveals to us that He orders the world, so we have a justification to believe induction, and then we accept God's revelation as our starting point and infallible foundation, is that not a solution to the problem?
I don't think so, and I'll get into it.
How? Why not?
We'll get into it in my cross exam. I promise.
Ridiculous.
Okay, well, that was PMAR's cross examination. Next is Christian. And by the way, for everybody in chat, if you have like any questions for the Q&A portion, you can just tag me in the side chat or on the YouTube video, and we can ask the debaters after the closing statements. So don't forget that if you have any questions. That being said, Christian, this is now your 50 minutes of cross examination. I will start the timer as soon as you say your first word.
So, PMARS, can a person think they have received revelation from God but be wrong?
No,
Why not?
because everyone has received revelation from God, and you can't rationally deny it.
I'm not saying. Wait. Okay, but I'm wrong about that because I think that I don't have revelation, but I'm wrong, right? Because you're saying I do.
Oh, wait,
have it.
what do you ask? You're asking me, can someone be wrong about knowing God's revelation?
Can someone think that they have received revelation from God but be wrong about it? They didn't actually receive revelation.
No.
Okay, so every single person on earth who claims they have revelation from God is correct. They have received revelation, and what they're saying is the word of God.
No, but everyone has revelation. I don't know what you're asking. Everyone has revelation
we're just
from
gonna
God.
Move on. Can you read the Bible without your senses?
No.
How did you know your senses worked when you read the Bible for the first time?
When I read the Bible for the first time, I suppose I wouldn't, like prior to reading the Bible.
Okay, so if the Bible grounds everything, right? You said that was you said that the Bible is the foundational starting point, right? But you aren't sure that your senses were working properly when you read the Bible. I think that's a huge flaw to your worldview, right? Because it can't be the starting point. Your senses have to be the starting point, right?
Well, that's That's your worldview. My worldview is that God's revelation is a starting point, so that's not a problem.
Okay. Um, does God have knowledge?
Yes,
How does God justify his beliefs?
he doesn't have to because he creates knowledge. So like he creates all universals and particulars, so he knows all universals and particulars.
Is is knowledge justified true belief?
Yeah,
So to have knowledge, you have to justify your beliefs.
yeah.
How does God justify his beliefs?
He is the justification. He's the ultimate justification.
Okay, so God does not have knowledge. You said that
No,
there's no
according to
brute
you.
facts in your worldview, right? What's the explanation for God? Why does God exist?
God is a necessary precondition for the intelligible experience of humanity.
What is the grounding relationship? When you say X grounds Y, what does that entail?
That it provides ultimate context because you need like a rational context for anything to be intelligible. Otherwise, you're assuming intelligibility without rational context.
And you've asserted multiple times that the Christian God grounds logic. In fact, it's the only thing that can ground logic. Can you explain how God grounds logic?
How God grounds logic. So, yeah, so logic is universal, it's immaterial, it's eternal, it's unchanging, it's uncreated. So, to ground, there has to be something in reality with those attributes, basically. Like for a map to be grounded in reality, the map has to reflect the territory. So, for logic to be grounded in reality, it has to reflect something because it's logic we're abstracting to represent a concrete reality. So, God is the concrete reality that imposes and secures logical laws.
So when you and I use logic, are we like borrowing God's brain and using his brain for logic since he grounds logic? Or
Yeah,
like
so
what is the connection between my use of logic and God?
God would, so he creates you in his image and like he orders the universe according, he's like, he has a rational, unchanging nature and the world is ordered and we think according to his rational order and we're made in his image. So we can sort of think sort of like God, but not exactly like God because we have a different method of how we know things.
What
Like,
makes the Christian God uniquely able amongst gods to be the necessary precondition for the intelligibility of human experience?
well, one attribute that we focus on is he's triune. So there and for there to be intelligibility, we have to have real unity, which is say that everything connects and they're in a big picture.
Well,
And
hang on. Now I'm going to press you for this argument. What is the argument that everything must be connected for there to be intelligibility, right? Like you gave this example about watching a movie and saying that like if you watch one scene from the movie without watching the whole movie, it's somehow unintelligible, right? I mean, maybe I would just direct you to YouTube where you can go and watch countless clips of scenes from movies. And like if you read the comments, it's not like everyone's just typing jibber jabber and wingdings, right? They're clearly it's clearly intelligible. They can watch the scene and understand what the scene was, right? So just to wrap back to the question, right? Uh what's the argument that everything must be connected at unity?
the argument that everything must be connected at unity, that that explanation and intelligibility requires like connections between events and
That's
facts.
this just to interrupt you. This is what I'm asking you to explain. What is the argument? Why should I believe that things must be connected? And I don't want you to
Um,
just boldly assert again
well,
that
because like
I just have to.
we predict like the future resembles the past, right? So if nothing connects the future and the past event, then
Well, I mean,
we
I
believe in a
explained to
false
you that in my view
connection.
there's causality, so I think that the future is connected to the past, but it's not that it's just like
Okay, but
fundamentally connected to the unity at the ultimate foundation, right? That's what I'm focusing on. What's the argument for that?
okay, but all you're doing is like describing a unified reality,
Well, but
but
what
you're
I'm trying to
not,
do is ask for the argument for why it must be unified.
because when every time you talk, you rely on unity. Your view is a unified.
So you're just going to assert it again without explaining it?
You're asserting it. Everyone
Okay,
asserts
that's fine.
it.
We can just move on.
Okay.
Why is there evil and suffering in the world if God is all good?
Why is there evil and suffering? Because God desires a relationship with you, and so He has to temporarily allow you. He could eliminate evil and suffering, but He'd have to get rid of you. But He wants to have a
Like our free will,
relationship with you.
right?
Well, that does, yeah, because like love can't be forced, so God has to like give you the opportunity to rebel, or else you don't have a real relationship. 'Cause you can't force someone to love you, and because and then so right now we're just in a temporary period of redemptive history. God is going to eliminate suffering. It's just
Do
he's
people have free will in heaven?
yeah.
Okay, so it is possible for God to create circumstances where everyone freely chooses to have a relationship with him, right?
That's what He's done.
No, there's evil and suffering in the world, right?
Yeah,
He's created a world where people have the choice and then they choose to go against God. Why didn't he create the world where everyone chooses to go with God?
because then we don't have a choice.
Well, there's free will in heaven, right? So we can have free will and still always choose the good.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
Um, what does it mean for God to be good?
That God has all the great making properties, that He's like perfect.
But he's like morally perfect, right?
He has all like He's the greatest conceivable being. He has all the great making properties. That's what it means. He's perfect. He's absolute.
Um, what does it mean for the Father to be God, the Son to be God, but the Father not be the Son?
That they're two they're two distinct relationships in one unified God. So like the Father eternally begets the Son but is not begotten, and the Son is eternally begotten but doesn't beget. So they have a different relationship, but they're both God. They're unified in one. It's just relationships.
So it's just an equivocation on the word is, right?
No. It's barely, I mean, it's
Okay, then is this polytheism then?
no. It's just
Okay,
like the number three is both three and one. It's the
can you
one in
explain
many.
that?
It's just the one in many. There's the number three is three, but it's also one number. So it's kind of like that.
Okay, right. But if I put three oranges on the table and asked you, like, if we gave a test to like a kindergartner and said, little Timmy, are there three oranges or one orange? We would give him a failing mark for saying one, right?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Um, here's a question, right?
Yeah.
What exactly is a necessary precondition, right? Like, uh, here's what I think about it is like, you want to go on the roller coaster. The condition is that you have to be this tall to ride the roller coaster, right? Is the precondition that you're a human, and the necessary precondition that there is intelligence? Like, like, what is the difference between a condition, a precondition, and a necessary precondition?
A condition, a precondition, and a necessary precondition. I'm not sure what a condition, just the state something is in. I don't know. The precondition would be like what would be prior to the current state, right? And necessary, what is necessary? So necessary means like can't fail to be otherwise. So like has to be. It's not optional as opposed to optional.
Okay. Um, So I want to circle back to why the Christian God is uniquely able, amongst other gods, to be necessary preconditions. You explained the Trinity, right?
Mhm.
Why is it that in order for the human experience to be intelligible, that the second persons of the Trinity must be born in Bethlehem?
Because the whole Christian worldview functions as a unit. So like if Jesus isn't born in Bethlehem, then the Bible's false, and if the Bible's false, then we have no infallible foundation. The Bible has to be infallible, or else there's no infallible foundation. Because humans are fallible. So
Do you think the Bible is inerrant?
yes,
Do you think the Bible is literal?
yes,
So Jesus is the door, right? He is a door.
Well, we interpret it literally as possible. Obviously, there's figures of speech, and then we can tell that by like context.
Okay, so it's not literal.
No, we have a literal interpretation. I thought that's what you were asking. I didn't know you're I didn't know you're asking a dumb question.
I like dumb questions, right?
I guess so.
That's why I debate.
Yeah,
Um,
clearly.
okay, can you explain why there would be no intelligibility of human experience if, when Jesus was born, he was not brought gold, frankincense, and myrrh?
I mean, it's the
Like, what
same.
if it was silver, frankincense, and myrrh?
It's the same
Then, like, it
thing.
would just be a booming, bustling chaos, right? No one would understand this debate. It would like we'd all be confused and chaotic.
Well, if God can lie, then we have no ultimate standard of truth, and then it's like everything's up in the air, nothing's connected, nothing makes sense. It's like
Right.
a chance world.
Do you use a particular hermeneutic when you read the Bible?
Yes,
Which one?
literal.
Okay, but you just said that Jesus is not the door.
Right. So literal and hermeneutic, it's not that everything is literal. I said we make it as literal as possible. We don't add. We
What
don't.
determines whether something in the Bible is possible to be literal or not?
It'd be self-interpreting. So the Bible would have it like within the
Okay, so
Bible.
it's what P. Mars thinks.
No, it's like the
Well,
author.
the individual person, right, who reads the Bible. In this case, it's P. Mars.
No, but when
Okay,
hermeneutics,
if it's not up to the individual, then what is the hermeneutic principle that lets us determine what is literal and what is metaphor?
we use like historical, cultural, contextual analysis. We use lexical, syntactical
Okay,
analysis, theological
but
analysis, the
but this okay.
literary
Wait, so
analysis.
do you hold to a literal hermeneutic or a historical contextual hermeneutic? Because they're in conflict with each other.
No, no. There's two main ways. There's two main ways of thinking. There's literal and allegorical.
And the question is, when we read the Bible, when Krishan goes into a room and reads the Bible, and P. Mars goes into a room and reads the Bible, and we come back and compare notes, do you think that we're all going to list the same things as literal and the same things as metaphorical? We're going to disagree, right? So, what is, as we were talking about earlier, what's the truth maker here? What is the ultimate
That's why
standard for the Bible?
you have to do exegesis, where we apply rules to find the author's intended meaning, and we went over the rules. And this topic isn't about hermeneutics. We're supposed to be talking about the preconditions.
1 minute.
Well, I think it's important because you claim that the Bible is the foundational starting point, and I'm pointing out how using that as your foundational starting point will not actually get everyone on the same page by the end, right?
But we have
If we're all going
objective.
to use our own interpretation to
That's
decide
not what
what's
we're
literal
doing.
and what's metaphorical,
Hermeneutics
we're
is
not
the
going to agree.
hermeneutics is the science of objective interpretation. We just use hermeneutics.
Whoa. Whoa, that was a mouthful, right? Hermeneutics is about interpretation, right? I have no clue what objective
It's the
interpretation
science.
means.
It's
In
a
fact, I think that's a
science.
contradictory statement,
It's a
right? What it is
science.
to interpret is to use your own mind, your own beliefs, your own subjective opinions to come to a conclusion about what something means, right?
No,
That's not
no,
possible to be done in the
that's called
objective.
eisegesis. We're supposed to do exegesis. You don't know what you're talking about. You got to read books on the subject.
Sounds good.
Okay, that was it for the cross examination. Now we're going to go into the open discussion portion.
Mind if we do a little
Debate.
2-minute break? I can use the restroom real quick.
Yeah, for sure. If you guys want to do it, just we can
Yeah,
go
Cookie Mars.
and do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Derby.
In the meantime, like everybody, if you have questions for our debaters, you can go in the side chat and you can tag me in the side chat, Daniel Hume, and I will ask them the question after the open discussion part of the debate is done. Or you can go into the YouTube and just post it on the YouTube video.
I think it's funny, like hermeneutics. I always get asked hermeneutical questions when the topic's about the preconditions for intelligibility. It's like I don't understand. It's like interpreting the Bible would be like a different debate, which is like fine, whatever. Because I researched this stuff, but
Oh, by the way, like later on, we're going to start our own show and we're going to be talking about how Jesus is not the Messiah. So we can butt in and we can have a conversation about that later, P. Mars, if you're down to it.
Yeah, he didn't fulfill the prophecies, right?
Yep, 0.
Yeah.
But that's not for this debate. This is for later. So I'm not gonna go further. Okay.
All right, I'm back.
Okie dokie. You're back. So I will just start the timer. If you guys are okay with it for like 30
Yeah,
minutes.
pretty much
of
you can start it
open
off.
discussion. So you
Um,
guys can start.
do you think logic is universally true?
I think so. Like it's not exactly how I would word things, right? But I think I agree with the
What?
general sentiment.
What? I mean, it either is or it isn't. Or is it a necessary truth?
I mean, look, like if we were to pick individual statements in logic, right, like the law of identity or something, like is that like a necessary truth?
Yeah.
I mean, I think so. Like, look, I'm not a philosopher, I'm not a logician or anything. Like, my understanding is that there are many forms of logic, right? Like when people talk about the 3 laws of logic, they're talking about like classical logic or this like Aristotelian view. But my understanding is that there's other views, right? There's like paraconsistent logics that allow for contradictions, so they don't hold to the law of non-contradiction.
That's not true though. Paraconsistent logic at a meta level still has to assume the law of non-contradiction, because without the law of non-contradiction, there's no difference between reason and non-reason. So you always yeah.
That's not my understanding, but like I said, I don't know enough about this. To,
Well,
like,
how is that
give
okay,
detailed
dude? If
feedback.
there's no contradiction, then everything is A, right? And if everything is A, then
Look,
reason
I
and non.
appreciate that you can.
Well, if reason and non-reason do not contradict, right? Think about it.
Look, I appreciate that, and I can think about it and agree with you. But suffice to say, there are a number of professional philosophers who are doing what seems to be
You don't
useful
know what you're
work
talking
in
about.
things like
Okay,
paraconsistent
who
logic.
cares what? But we're having a debate. I don't care what professional philosophers. They can sit in their ivory tower. Do they get?
You did appeal to that earlier.
Did
To
the
say I was wrong about.
I made arguments though. I was appealing to arguments.
You didn't.
Okay, now you're just incredibly bad faith. This is low character.
Could you look? I've been taking notes. I could have missed it. Could you reiterate Bertrand Russell's argument to me?
Yeah, that there's no empirical evidence for induction or account. There's no rational account for induction, and there never will be, because empiricism would beg the question, and rational account won't work because the future isn't necessarily the same as the past.
Maybe we're talking past each other here, because when I've been using the word argument, I've been using it as like a series of premises that lead to a conclusion. And that's not what I heard right here when you recounted what you think is Russell's argument.
Well, I gave an informal version of it. Like what? Why is that an issue?
Right, but your informal version pretty much came to, empiricism and rationalism can't be used because you shouldn't use them.
No, I said,
Right?
I said
circular argument.
empiricism begs the question because empiricism uses induction, right? So that's begging the question. So you can't use induction to prove induction. That's why empiricism doesn't work. Rationalism doesn't work because it doesn't necessarily follow that the future resembles the past. And the point of a deductive argument is to show a necessary entailment. But we're not talking about a necessary entailment. We're saying it's just resembles, not necessarily.
Do you think? Sorry, I lost my train of thought here. So you think that non-Christian worldviews all die to the problem of induction, and you think that Christianity solves the problem of induction?
Yeah, among many other problems, because we have a different starting point.
What's the solution to the problem of induction in Christianity?
That the problem is, how do you know the future resembles the past? And in the Bible, God says, I will order the universe. I'm the ordering principle behind the order and patterns you see in nature. And he tells us that he'll keep the order.
I pointed out to you earlier, and you agreed with me that before you read the Bible for the first time, you couldn't verify that your senses worked and that there was induction, right? Mm-hmm. How do you know that you correctly read the Bible if your senses are not reliable and induction is not reliable, right? Like if
Because
the future is supposed to resemble the past, but there is no induction, maybe you didn't read the Bible. Maybe you read 10 comic books together.
because chronologically, just because I have to start with my senses and my own reason doesn't mean that that's the ultimate like reference point. So it's a difference between like chronological priority and logical priority. So like for example, I could give an argument, I could give you the conclusion first and then give you the premises, but the 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 premises still have logical priority over on the conclusion, even though I chronologically give the conclusion first. So it's like the same thing. I don't have the problem with like justifying my sense data because sense data isn't my ultimate authority of what's true. My ultimate authority, I start with God's word in the Bible. So this is like my starting point, the Bible. I
Right.
start
And
with
then
this.
somewhere down the road, we verify your sense data and induction.
Yes, yeah. You
after
want
you read
you
the
want to
Bible.
start with sense data or reason. That's the only other starting points. So it's either the Bible, sense data, or your mind. So it's like, where are you going to
And you
start?
choose the Bible before sense data.
Well, no, proximately, I have to start with my sense data. So that's proximate starting point. But then the ultimate starting point would be God's word or the mind of God.
I don't quite know what you mean by proximate starting point.
Well, like obviously locally, I start with myself, my senses, and my reason. That's what I start with, and then I read God's word, and then logically I start with God. Locally, I start with myself. But God,
So you didn't use logic to read the Bible?
because think about it like this: God exists before me, right? God is eternal. He's the beginning.
Sure, like temporally,
So
yeah.
he has priority over me. So
I
come
don't know
down
what
later.
priority means.
Logical priority, because or ontological priority.
Mm,
Like
I don't know what that is.
he
Can you
comes
explain it?
first. There's just saying he comes first. He has priority. He comes first.
Like temporally?
Well, temporarily, logically, ontologically,
So I know what it
ethically.
is for things temporally to be before and after each other, right? This moment right now is before this moment right now, right?
Mhm.
What does it mean to be logically prior?
He has like the logical authority.
What is logical authority?
Like when we use logic, he's the final reference point. So I'm saying this is when I reason, this is the final reference point when I reason, as opposed to like my senses or my mind. So I don't have the problem of empiricism. So you're throwing like empirical skeptical problems. They don't apply to me if I start with God's word. And that's why I'm arguing to even debate and have the debate make sense. We have to stand on this to argue. Because think about
you have memories of reading the Bible, yeah?
yeah.
And did you verify that you weren't a brain in the vat at the time or since then?
Yeah.
How'd you do that?
Well, the worldview where I'm a brain in a vat doesn't provide for the necessary preconditions of intelligibility. And since we can't deny intelligibility, then the Bible has to be true. That worldview is like a unified description of reality, but it doesn't describe a unifier. So it's a contradiction. So only Christians have a unified description of reality with a unifier. Every other worldview is going to contradict because it's going to lack unity. There'll be no account for unity.
And like, look, if this debate was that the Christian God is necessary precondition for unity in a worldview, I mean, I still think that would be kind of trash, right? But we're talking
It
about
is.
intelligibility of human experiences, right?
That requires unity. You can't have intelligibility without unity.
You still have yet to provide any sort of reasoning for that.
That's not true. I'll provide it right now. So when we look at the big picture, we have how we connect facts together. In order to make like a prediction, like in science, we make predictions. That doesn't mean every prediction is accurate. Predictions show that reality is ordered and intelligible, and that requires an explanation. What makes the intelligibility possible? And unity in a rational structure is what explanation depends on. And the
Okay, but
ultimate,
you've once again just boldly asserted,
No.
unity is what intelligibility depends on. I'm asking
the
you to
logic.
justify the statement, unity is what intelligibility depends on. Please justify it.
Yeah, if predictability of reality has no ultimate explanation, then trusting predictions is irrational. But we do trust them constantly. That only makes sense if there's a real foundation that makes reality rationally ordered in the first place. Right? You're assuming there's a rational order, aren't you? That's what I mean by unity.
I don't know what that means.
A rational order. That
Yeah, I've
there's
never
a
heard that
that
before.
things connect to each other in a rational order.
Look, I've already told you, I believe in causality,
P then
right?
Q,
But
if P then Q, that's like a connection.
well, okay. So you're
So
talking
if
about
some
logical
for
entailment?
things for anything to connect, there has to be an ultimate explanation.
Why?
That's what it means to connect. That it
I
ultimately.
completely disagree. So
if
like when
it-
we play
okay.
Connect 4 and I line up 4 pieces, I've found like the ultimate foundation
Okay.
between the 4 red pieces.
If P then Q doesn't ultimately follow, then it's not true. Then it's ultimately not true that if P then Q. Right?
Can I get that on a plaque? That was great.
If P then
Man,
Q
like
doesn't ultimately follow, then it's not true that if P then Q. That would not be ultimately true. Right?
Could you so I know what it is for something to be true. What does ultimately true mean?
That there's ultimate context, that it's true within a rational ordered narrative. As
So
opposed
now
to
what it sounds like you're
that's
telling me is like the reason that
But
there must be
here-
unity.
Let me
It's
put it like
because
this. Let me put it like this. That it's actually true as opposed to we assume it's true. That's a better way to put it. So if it's ultimately true, it's actually true. If it's not ultimately true, then we just assume it's true and we have no reason to think it's true. And then we lose
what it sounds like you're talking about are beliefs versus knowledge, right?
No, I'm talking about what's the ultimate standard of truth. If there's no ultimate standard of truth, then it's not ultimately true. Right? If
Well,
P
that's just not language that I think we need to use, right? But like what
Okay,
it sounds like you're
but
doing
then you
here is,
shouldn't
like, when I'm
debate.
asking you
Then you're
to
contradicting
explain
your.
why things need an ultimate connection, you're saying,
Then
well,
why
without an
make
ultimate connection,
why
it
make a
can't be
truth claim?
ultimately true.
So you're saying, oh, this is true, but it's not ultimately true. Then why even talk? You're not saying anything that's relevant.
Okay. I mean, I think I am. I think that this whole debate has been
No.
intelligible. I don't think that we needed God for it.
No, if there's no ultimate foundation for the debate, then everything we're saying is arbitrary. You're right and I'm right. What ultimately decides which one of us is correct in the debate? I'm saying I'm at least providing a candidate that Jesus can be the ultimate authority. I'm not sure, like, what are you saying? That, like, you offered facts of the world, but then that can't even justify its own standard.
What I've really been saying the whole time is that there is no need for ultimacy in any of these
But then
explanations.
why are we debating?
Foundationalism, right?
That's a contradiction to debate. Nothing
In
ultimately
your worldview, right?
in any worldview, nothing ultimately decides who's right in a debate. Is that what your view is? Nothing decides what's right.
Well, I think that individuals decide, right? Like if you listen to a debate
What?
and you want to decide who won, you're going to make a decision for yourself. You're going to interpret it.
What's
You're
the
going
point
to
of
use some
this?
sort
This is
of
pointless.
criterion that you've decided.
This is totally pointless to talk to you.
Okay. I mean, like, look, things that are objective is like a game of basketball, right? Like we can just look at the facts of the universe and count how many times the basketball went through the basketball hoop.
You keep evoking unified descriptions of reality and then saying that you don't need unity. So it's like you're so goofy, dude. That's the problem. Like, I don't understand. Like, why are you so goofy?
Kind of a goofy guy. That's a fair assessment.
It's just weird.
Like
you're totally everything you're saying is a contradiction.
That's levity, you know.
Everything you're saying is a contradiction, and I'm pointing it out. And I'm saying if you stand on the Bible, you don't have any of these problems, and you're just like, I don't care. I mean, this is like talking to a flat earther. I'm like, here, look, I have this model that works, and you're like, no, but I don't believe it because no reason. Like, NASA CGI or something. Like, what is this? Why is what guarantees that logic is going to be the same tomorrow? Why doesn't it change?
Actually, logic kind of changes a lot. Like I said, we have paraconsistent logics now.
Can 2 plus 2
There's
equal
lots of
5?
philosophers and logicians that are actively doing work within logic, fleshing out logical
You
systems,
don't even know what you're
creating
talking
new
about.
logical systems.
They
Happens all the
all
time.
assume the law of non-contradiction. Can you
Paraconsistent logics don't.
They do. Just at a meta level, they do. Does 2 plus 2 equal 4, or can that
Sure
be 5?
does.
Can it change and be 5?
Look, if you want to make a new mathematical system with the plus operator being
Uh-huh.
different from the normal plus operator, such that 2 plus 2 equals 5, then you can do that, man.
Well, do you think the amount of weight the bridge can hold, right? Because we'll use math to calculate that, right?
Sure.
Can that change?
Well, to be fair, there's things like stresses and
But those still
deterioration
follow
that does change.
mathematical principles, right? So the bridge seems to obey mathematical principles, right? Can those change?
I think the bridge it's beholden to the laws of physics, right?
That's what I'm
I
saying.
don't really think things
Which
like
can be
follow math.
represented.
I
We
think
can
math follows the world.
We would
Right? I
abstract.
think math is
Physics is we use math to abstractly represent physics. Is it representing
Sure.
something real
Well,
or not real?
I'll go with real.
Okay, so you're saying there's an unchanging truth. Now,
I wouldn't say that, but go ahead.
okay, so can the weight math based on how math feels that day, because math doesn't it changes. Do you think the amount of weight the bridge can hold can change? Just based on how math feels that day? Like maybe it doesn't feel like holding your car, and when you drive over the bridge, you die, right?
Well, to be honest, this sounds more like the God worldview, where you're telling me that somehow everything roots back to Jesus, and that he's the ultimate standard, and he's the one who's deciding.
Do you believe that?
That's what that sounds like, and you're trying to shove that into my worldview and have me anthropomorphize mathematics and physics and saying that things depend on something like that. That's your view, man.
Okay, but in your view, based on how math feels today, it's going to decide well, maybe
I don't know what that means.
Well, that math can change. The math will go, well, I'm going to change today because I don't feel like holding the weight of this bridge. Does math do that?
Yeah, that sounds ridiculous. That's not what I said.
Okay, so there's an unchanging truth, right? That the bridge obeys.
I think you're talking about the laws of physics, right?
Okay, let's go back. Yeah.
Keep saying.
Can they change? Can the mathematical principles that determine the weight?
Dude, math is just language, right? We don't
we can change
math.
Language.
We don't discover math and then
we can change
discover
language.
Oh my gosh, the world matches this, right? We observe the world
language,
and we come up with a mathematical system, a language, right, that is able to describe things in the world, right?
We can change language though. Can we change 2 plus 2 so it's 5?
Yes.
Really? So
yeah,
then
you can
why
look, dude,
why do you drive over a bridge? Because maybe the math will change and you'll die. Why do you drive over the bridge?
No, you're completely strawmanning me.
How am I strawmanning you?
Because I'm trying to tell you that what I think can change are labels, language, and descriptions, right?
I'm not talking about
that. You could construct a new form of mathematics with a different plus operator such that 2 plus 2 is equal to 5.
I'm not talking about the labels though. I'm talking about what the labels refer to, the objects. Can those change?
I don't think that 2 is an object in the real world.
So it doesn't have properties.
But look, and how about this though?
Does 2 have properties?
And the debate isn't just
does
about
2 have properties? Does 2 have properties? Do you believe 2 has properties?
I was trying to answer you. Can I finish?
Okay, go ahead. Does 2 have properties?
So you keep telling me, like I said, I can keep telling
properties
you about
nuts. Got him. Yeah, does 2 have properties?
I'm not sure if you actually want to hear my answer.
I want to hear, does 2 have properties? Answer that question. Properties nuts.
Excuse me?
Dude, does 2 have attributes and properties such that it's different from 3?
Is 2 different than 3? Yes.
Okay, right? Then it's an object. Then it's an object.
Is something that the number.
Then it's an object. Yeah.
This is supposed to be a discussion. You got to let me get in.
Okay. Well,
so, do I think the number 2 exists somewhere out there in the world? No, right? But like I said, I've been telling you about my personal views during this debate.
How do you account for immaterial objects in your view?
But the debate topic is about the Christian God being the necessary precondition, right? So you don't just have to defeat Krishan's worldview and show that Krishan is confused about things. Because let me just admit, Krishan is confused about a lot of fucking things, right? But look, like let's say that I was a mathematical Platonist, right? I do think that the number 2 exists in the Platonic realm of whatever. So what now? Like what?
So
why? I don't
Platonism
need God
has
in
this.
that picture.
Platonism
I'm grounded in
doesn't.
number 2.
Platonism doesn't help you because you're just positing an imaginary realm you have no access to, and the Platonic objects are causally effete. Like they don't cause anything.
No. They provide revelation in this view.
So now we move on to lying. This is just totally bad faith,
Lying?
man. You're being incredibly bad faith. You're not answering my questions, and you're lying, and you're acting like
What am I lying about?
you're acting like you don't need to defend your starting point, right?
Well,
But
what needs to happen is you need to show that
no,
all starting points besides the Christian God are insufficient, right? It doesn't like it's not enough to say that Krishan's starting point is insufficient. You need to show that all starting points besides the Christian God are insufficient. And not only that,
I
right?
have done that.
I'm still challenging this idea that there must be a starting point for intelligibility, right? And you still have failed completely to deliver any sort of argument, reason, or justification for that.
Because
without
you're,
simply
but
just
that's
boldly
only because
reasserting it.
that's because you're inept about how philosophy works. Because any worldview is going to require an account of unity, right? And I'm telling you that.
No.
But that you're just saying that because you're ignorant. You're just saying that because you're ignorant. So like that's just a personal incredulity and appeal to ignorance. So I don't. This is not. You're not making an argument. This is just bad faith. Because here's what it is, dude. You either start with God's revelation, right? We either start with the Bible or not. And I've demonstrated that if we don't start with this Bible, we have no account for unity and diversity. And no account for unity and diversity, there's no intelligibility. It's logically follows.
I don't think that you've established either of those, right? Like,
I
what if I
have.
started with the Quran, right? I would have a God. He would
The
be able to
Quran.
ground logic and
No, he
intelligibility.
can't. The Quran, the God of the Quran cannot ground logic because the God of the Quran is an undifferentiated blob and wouldn't account for unity. So life would be an illusion. Logic would be an illusion. You need a Trinitarian God revealed in history. Only Christianity has that. There's no other view that has a Trinitarian God. And you need an ultimate reality that has both unity and distinction. Or else ultimately unity and distinction aren't real. And then ultimately nothing's true, nothing is intelligible. No, we can never have knowledge of anything. It's just like a mess. So why are you rejecting the only model of reality that can make facts facts? For what?
I'm rejecting your explanation. Actually, I'm not rejecting. I don't think I'm pointing out that you have yet to give an explanation.
I just gave it.
Why?
I just gave it. It has to do with starting points. You start with this or you start with this. If you start with this, you get stuck in your brain. You can't defeat hard solipsism. You have to start with this. It's that simple.
How do you start with the Bible without using the other thing you pointed out?
I told you this is proximate and this is ultimate. So we're talking about what's our ultimate commitment. This is my foundation. So we have to talk about what foundation can replace this and the world's still intelligible. This answers induction.
What we need to do first,
the problem of the one and the many.
There must be a foundation.
If there's no ultimate unity, then there's no connections. We've already gone over this. You need a single unifying principle to even have an explanation, else the debate's arbitrary.
I know you say that we went over this, but all we did was listen to you boldly assert it and then completely dodge any request for an explanation,
this is ridiculous.
A justification, or an argument.
I've made arguments. Here's an argument. If logic exists, logic requires a sufficient foundation. Do you disagree?
Yes.
You disagree?
Yes. Why must
so
there
are
be
you
a
saying
foundation?
Are you saying logic doesn't exist, or are you saying it doesn't need a foundation?
No. I'm saying I'm not saying either. I'm saying I'm not convinced that it needs a foundation. That's your burden to
but
bear.
if logic isn't grounded, it's floating detached from reality. I'm asking, how do we connect it to reality?
Well, but that's not what you said the grounding relationship was.
Yes, it is.
That's what ultimate. The grounding relationship was just to provide ultimate context.
It's the same.
It's not about floating around.
It's the same.
That sounds like you're talking about like tying down a hot air balloon. It must be grounded or else it will like.
That's why I
float away
keep
or
talking
something,
about
right?
connections. There's no connection between the concept and the thing in the world. What connects them? Because logic is
No, I've
human.
already told you that. I've already told you
So
that there is
ridiculous.
causality in the world that connects things. It's just
Yeah.
that I'm pushing back on the idea that
No, but
everything
don't you
must be
understand?
tied back and connected to this like ultimate foundation, the unity or something,
This is
right?
so ridiculous.
That's what you have yet to establish is necessary.
That's ridiculous. We successfully predict and explain things all the time. That shows that reality is intelligible. But intelligibility requires that facts exist within a rational, unified structure that makes them understandable. And that structure itself requires an ultimate explanatory foundation. So otherwise, everything reduces to brute facts or arbitrariness. So the very possibility of prediction, explanation, and reasoning presupposes a necessary foundation that makes them possible. That's what I'm arguing the Christian God is. You have failed to provide an alternative foundation. You just talk about like, oh, this view, that view. You haven't made an argument. You haven't made a counter argument. I've made an argument.
I mean, it kind of sounds like we're going in circles here. I don't really have
Yeah,
any more questions for you.
which
Do you have any more
circle can
questions you can ask
account for
them?
intelligibility? My circle can make the world intelligible. Can your circle make the world intelligible? Where's
I
the
don't like
account for
circular reasoning.
unity? How do you solve induction? How do you solve hard solipsism? You're not offering anything.
Yeah, what I've done is push back against the idea that I can't do that while
You're
you can do
ignoring.
that, right?
You're literally
If neither of
using
us are able to
unity.
do it, then we're still on a par, and none
You're
of us
no,
are
we're not.
fundamentally.
You're borrowing. Your view is parasitic on my view. You're borrowing from my view to argue against me. This is insane.
Fair enough. Like I said, I don't really have any more questions, but I'm happy to answer any of your other questions, or we can move to closing and Q&A.
Yeah, 4 minutes left, by the way, guys, if you want to know.
I don't know. I mean, like, it's like I feel like it's just like contradict. Like, do you think truth exists?
Uh,
Can it-
does the external world exist? Yes, right.
Okay, but wouldn't
truth
you?
is, corresponding with that external world? Are there true things? Like, yes, absolutely.
But you realize, like, you
Does
have
the concept itself of truth exist somewhere? No, I think that's
no.
an abstract
Why
concept.
are we arguing then? You're arguing. This is so insane. So can this exist and not exist at the same time? This cup? Can this exist?
Not in the same way, in the same sense, right?
It
I'm saying
can't.
that truth.
So what limits
saying that-
reality? I say Jesus limits reality, so that can't be the case. It's impossible. What in your view limits reality?
Reality.
Reality limits reality. So what you've just
Yeah,
do?
I guess I don't exist. That I don't accept that there's like something beyond reality.
Okay,
that
that's
reality
just.
is,
But
like,
you're just
beholden to,
relabeling the
and
problem.
that it listens to this other thing.
But
and,
you're
like,
relabeling the
subservient
problem.
to it.
You're relabeling the problem when you say reality, because I'm saying what in reality limits the cup so the cup doesn't contradict and have contradicting properties. And you're saying reality, but that's just relabeling the problem. I'm actually offering a solution for intelligibility. It's Jesus. What's your solution? Reality? That's relabeling the problem.
Well, remember, I'm rejecting that there is a problem, right? And I'm pointing out to everyone.
Oh, hand wave dismissal. Good move. Yeah, hand wave dismiss the problems. Yes. The perennial problems in philosophy.
I think I've pointed out
they don't
pretty
exist.
thoroughly.
Yeah.
All
All the philosophers are wrong. All these problems, they're not problems. Philosophers are dumb. Insane. I don't understand. Okay, well, I guess we can just move to the close. This guy's nuts. It's like T-jump.
If you guys want to stop here, we can stop here. There's a minute and
Yeah.
half left.
I'm cool with stopping here unless you want to quite ask me something.
Nope, I'm good.
Okay.
Okay, and in that case, we're going to stop here, and we're going to do the 5-minute closing remarks, and we're gonna start with you, Mars. I'm gonna start the timer as soon as you say your first word.
Well, my opponent keeps like his mouth writes metaphysical checks, but he has to go to the bank and commit absolute identity theft from my God to even cash these checks. Like he wants to talk about everything he meant. He's constantly bringing unified descriptions of reality. He keeps saying there's unified descriptions of reality, and I ask him, what is the unifier? He doesn't answer the question. So he wants unity with no unifier. He wants differentiation too. He wants to differentiate between, you know, uh, this is rational, this is irrational, this is good evidence, this is bad evidence. Where's the differentiator? I'm saying Jesus differentiates reality and non-reality. Jesus differentiates truth, falsehood. He's the rational authority. He sustains existence. And what, in your view, sustains existence? I never heard anything. I just heard it is what it is. So my opponent has used logic, he's made truth claims, he's relied on reason for this entire debate, yet he cannot account for those things within his worldview. Logic is eternal and uncreated, like Jesus. So he can at least provide a reference point for eternal, uncreated things. What in your view, what in your model, I didn't hear anything eternal and uncreated that you offered as a foundation for intelligibility. So as we see, because my opponent doesn't provide any other candidate, that it's not that Christianity is one explanation among many, it's the necessary explanation. There is no other candidate. If there was, my opponent would have provided one, but he wants to talk about like hermeneutics. This debate has nothing to do with hermeneutics. So the whole debate rests on the foundation of this Bible. And if you deny that, everything you say is arbitrary. So thank you for coming. Thanks for arguing with me, and thanks for hosting, guys.
Okay. Thank you very much for your closing remarks. Krishan, it's your time. I will start the timer as soon as you say your first word. You have 5 minutes.
All right. So, is the Christian God the necessary precondition for the intelligibility of human experience? I think that I'm very confident now in saying no, he is not. Right. In my opener, I said that this really hinges on two things: intelligibility and human experience. Right. I didn't hear any pushback from PMARS on either of those two things. I think he agrees with me that there is human experience and that there is intelligibility in the world. Right. We're able as humans to understand and make sense of the world. He mentioned something about everyone receiving revelation, but just being in denial. So I think that maybe that's how he's going to explain why everyone has intelligibility. But as I think it's been pointed out numerous times now in this debate, these are unprincipled beliefs that are held dogmatically because of religion, right? There was no argument given for foundationalism. There was no argument given that we need to have ultimate context for anything. In fact, I'm not really sure that there was any argument given for anything, right? And I can appreciate that maybe they were given informally, right? But I think that once when I pressed him on them, it probably is the proper time to whip out a syllogism, and none of those were ever produced, right?
Dude, you're not worthy of a syllogism.
That, right? That sounded like nonsense.
You're an idiot.
So I think that it's pretty clear to me that PMARS has not sufficiently established that no other worldview is able to account for intelligibility, and especially when we think about other religious worldviews, right? I'm more sympathetic. I don't believe it, but I'm more sympathetic to the idea that materialist atheism can't ground X, Y, and Z or whatever. And maybe you need a supernatural cause. I think that's still hogwash too, but it's at least more conservative than the idea that it must be the triune Christian God born in Bethlehem, received gold, frankincense, and myrrh. The idea that if Jesus received silver instead of gold with his frankincense and myrrh, that there would be no intelligibility, I think it's just really just sums up the whole debate, right? And it's just impossible to try and draw a line of inference from one of those to the other. Something I really tried to do during my line of cross-examination is establish to everyone that PMARS doesn't have an intelligible worldview, right? And I think that this debate was intelligible, but I think I pointed out tons of contradictions in PMARS's own worldview, which he hounded me at the start about saying that once you have contradictory things in your worldview, that you need to discard them, right? The idea that the Bible is the foundation, but you can't know you can't know that your senses are working before you read the Bible. I think it's just a massive plot hole in PMARS's worldview. He's not able to actually know that he correctly read the Bible.
I completely responded to that. This guy's nuts.
He gave really wishy-washy answers about whether a person can think they have revelation but be wrong. He said that no, everyone is correct, but I think that's ridiculous too. As just the existence of all these different sects and branches of Christianity, as well as like testimony from countless individuals who say that they have received revelation or spoken to God, those are all going to be in conflict with each other. They can't all be true.
No
P. Mars
shit.
talked about God having knowledge, but not needing to justify his knowledge. I think that's unintelligible.
I said he is the
humans have free
justification.
will
That's not what I
because of
said.
needing to be able to choose God, but there being free will in heaven.
Why would I
and
say he
everyone,
can't justify his...
choosing God? So I don't
So
see why evil needs to exist. God could have created everyone with free will, as such that they were predisposed to choose God.
He's literally the stopping point in
I
justification.
think that the Trinity is unintelligible too, right? The idea that the Father is God, the Son is God, but the
I
Father
just
is
think
not the
these
Son,
things. I
is to
feel
me
like
unintelligible.
this.
I think that even like the whole term necessary precondition is pretty unintelligible, right? He gave some explanation about the condition of the world as it is now, and then the precondition being the conditions before that. That's just completely missing what the idea of a condition is, right? Like I said, the condition to get on the roller coaster is that you must be this tall, right? That's what it means or that's an example of what it is for a condition to be there. So yeah, I think that I came into this really excited to really dig down and to get the reasons as to why there must be a necessary precondition for intelligibility. And I came away from it, maybe somewhat disappointed, but ultimately it was kind of what I expected. In that, this is an unprincipled view with no arguments.
You're a fucking audience member. You're not even a debater.
But thanks to Daniel Hume and thanks to P. Mars.
Thank you very much. That was it. And now we're moving on to the Q&A section of the debate. So first question. Sorry, P. Mars.
No, I was just insane. Like the way he framed it is like it's my job to convince him. Like it's your job. You're supposed to debate. You're supposed to defend your view. You didn't do that. Anyways.
Okay, so P. Mars, the debate today was with the prompt: the Christian God is the necessary precondition for intelligibility of human experience, and you are arguing for the proposition. So it falls to you to actually demonstrate the proposition.
I understand that, but when I make an argument, he has to give a counter argument. He doesn't have to go. He doesn't have to go to say like I'm not convinced of your argument. That's an appeal to personal incredulity. Look. He acted like an audience member. He didn't act like a debater. This is a total embarrassment and a disgrace. This is totally amateur. This is totally amateur. I'm sorry, but this is amateur.
This is amateur when you're over talking me.
Yes, this is a completely amateur debate. This was an embarrassment.
It's great stuff. Okay, so I'm gonna go straight to the questions in that case. First one is from Upogu. He says the problem of induction is also why you have a problem with hard solipsism, which isn't fixable with theism. How does P. Mars claim this solves it?
What did he say? The problem,
especially when you can't say, yeah. So the problem of induction is also why you have a problem with hard solipsism, which isn't fixable with theism.
The problem,
how do you, P. Mars, claim your worldview solves it, especially when you can't say anything except yourself rationally exists?
Oh, because we start with the single unifying principle. So God, hard solipsism is a problem when you start in your own mind. Your starting point's your own mind. You get trapped in your own mind. But we have different starting points. If you start with God's word revealed in Scripture, you don't have the problem of hard solipsism. That's a good problem. I think you guys should solve that.
Okay, so I'm gonna go to the second question. This is from Big O, also for you, P. Mars. When is something not God? How can you disqualify God claims without presupposing you believe the correct ones?
Well, the correct claims would have to be revealed objectively in human history. That's the only way we could know God.
Oh, okay. I thought you were actually going to justify your.
Well, wait, was he asking me how do I know God's claims in the Bible?
Yeah, when is something not God? So how can you disqualify God claims without presupposing you believe the correct ones?
Well, we would have like a criteria for judging Scripture, like if what book is Scripture or not. We would like if it has the power to change lives, if it's got some connection to Jesus or the apostles, stuff like that.
So you have to presuppose your book first, right? That's what they were saying. Because you have to start with the presupposition.
Well,
At first,
everyone
it
has
is
a
the correct
starting
one.
point. Yeah. So the argument is about what starting point makes intelligibility possible. Because we all have starting point. Yeah, we start with the Bible.
So you're presupposing that. That's what the question was. So you're saying yes, you have to presuppose it.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Sorry.
Third one. Cool. Also for you, Pimars, from Upogu. Can you justify outside reality? And follow up, how can you get to that if you must first accept the outside reality of God?
It has to do with our starting point because I don't start in my own mind. So I don't have that problem. I start in the external world. So God is the unifier. God unifies my mind to the world. And I start with God. So I don't have that problem. I start with unity. You guys start with your mind disconnected. So that's why hard
Okay, so
solipsism isn't my
okay.
problem.
I get it. So you can actually start with something that's not your mind. What you're saying.
Well, yeah. I mean, why can't I? Why can't I start with God's revelation? According to what authority?
I mean, revelation goes into your mind, right?
We have to have a starting point for reason. So, like, an empiricist is going to start with their senses. A rationalist is going to start with human reason. I'm a Christian, so I start with God's revelation. So we have different starting points, right? So, like,
Yeah.
skeptical
You're still
problems.
getting that in your mind, right?
Well,
To be fair,
When you
maybe-
have the revelation, you're getting the revelation. in
yeah,
your
revelation is just anything your consciousness comes into contact with. That's a revelation from God, in
mind,
my
and the
view.
consciousness is in your mind also.
Yeah,
to
but
be
that's
fair,
not the
Daniel,
starting point.
Are we
That's not the
allowing
starting point.
like follow-up questions, or I know you're eager, but
Yeah. I'm just trying to make sure that the questions are being answered for the people
enough,
that ask the questions. Fourth question, also for you, Pimars, from Dual. Why is God necessary for there to be truth?
Because you need an ultimate standard of what's true and false. So there's no other ultimate standard.
Yeah, I think he's saying it's like, why can't it be something else other than that?
Well, you're
It's a
welcome to
necessary
provide.
precondition.
I've looked high and low. I've not found another candidate, and anyone's welcome to debate me. And like, if you can offer another candidate, I'll quit making this argument.
Okay. Fifth question, also from Big O, also for you, Pimars. Who came up with your argument? Also, please account for all the transcendental categories of human experience and demonstrate their necessary relationship to God.
I mean, geez, that would take a long time. I don't think I could name all of them.
I mean, let's just answer the first answer the first one. Like, who came up with your argument?
So, well, I mean, technically the argument is in the Bible. It's Roman, so you could say it was Saint Paul. But I guess the philosopher that formalized it was a guy named Cornelius Van Til.
Thank you very much. Sixth question from Newbury McNoob. A question for both of you guys. Is there an objective truth in a subjective reality?
I don't understand the question.
I would say no, because there'd be
Well,
no.
I mean, just let me try to clarify. So, assuming a reality is subjective, can there be
I don't know what that
any
means.
objective truths in
Like-
that subjective reality?
He's saying if we start with like a subjective foundation for truth, can we go from a subjective foundation to like an objective truth later down the line? And I would say no, that if you have no like ultimate objective reference point, that ultimately any claim based on a subjective foundation would ultimately be subjective.
I think it's just really confused language.
Just confused
Like,
language.
That's
That's all he says.
Objectivity in the world, like yes, right? Is there an external reality? Yes. I don't know what it means for reality to be subjective.
It's a word salad. I'm trying to literally.
I mean, probably they're referring
Yeah.
to the way we perceive it. You know,
I'm literally trying to break it down
objectively.
as simple. I don't know how that doesn't make sense. Like, if nothing is ultimately true, then
Right.
things
Well, I
aren't
mean,
true.
as I've said like a ton of times, I'm just pushing back against the idea that there must be a foundation, right? So like questions
That's
about like, if
fine,
the foundation was
but-
this, what would happen to that? I don't know, right? I just don't have that kind of worldview.
But what you're
I
saying
don't
is
see
there's
any
no
reasons why
ultimate.
anyone should have that kind of worldview.
But you're saying there's no ultimate truth. So that's just it's insane.
Seventh question, also for you, Pimars, is the Old Testament part of the Bible? And are there any
Yes.
historic errors in the Old Testament?
Yes, it's part of the Bible. I think there's like scribal errors or like copying errors, but there's no like errors from God or something like that, or errors from the author.
Okay, so you would agree there are some errors there.
Yeah, like copying errors. Yeah, but yeah, I would say it's inerrant in the sense of like the author's intention.
Okay. Another one. This is a question again for you, P. Mars from Upogo. He wanted to prove paraconsistent logic using consistent logic that this sentence is false. Is the sentence true or false?
I mean, that's like blowing my mind. Well, I don't even really understand that question.
Yeah, I mean, this was a fact check because at one point in time, like Krishan actually, brought up like there's other
Right,
types of logic out
right.
there, and you said that he
So
was wrong about it. But in reality, paraconsistent logics are a formal system that allow for contradictions,
okay,
specifically the coexistence of a statement and its negation, like in the sentence that I just
okay, so but
read
even
to
a
you.
even a paraconsistent logician is going to say that like Apple doesn't exist and not exist at the same time in the same sense. Although there are rare people that say that, but okay, if you want to say that things can like literal actual contradictions exist, then it's like you can take
Yeah,
that
I mean,
view, but that's an
this sentence actually is that, right? Because if you're saying this sentence is false,
oh, the
uh,
liar's
in a
paradox.
paraconsistent logic, you have to say that it's either true, it's both true and false at the same
Well,
time. So
the
it would be
liar's
a contradiction
paradox you're
in
talking about.
classical logic.
Well, the liar's paradox, I would say, is like a malformed proposition. That's how I would answer that. But like, yeah,
Okay,
I don't think you can't really reason without the law of non-contradiction. So I think they're just being like sophist to deny that.
uh, moving on. Another question from Big O for you, P. Mars. Earlier in the debate, you correctly argued that empiricism presupposes its own correctness. However, you also disbarred rationalism as an invalid epistemology. Isn't your transcendental argument an attempted argument for first principles and thus rational argumentation? Would you rescind your earlier claim about
um,
rationalism in the light of this fact?
no, I don't. So I'm not a rationalist, but I would still make rational arguments. Or like, I'm not an empiricist, but I still believe I would make empirical arguments. And I would say that rationalism and empiricism need a transcendental foundation in Scripture. So to even make a rational argument, you need the foundation in Scripture. So that's the kind of the point. Because without God,
Uh,
rationalism you couldn't get coherence in a chance universe.
got it. This one is for you, Rishon. You said for your causality connects things as future and past, but how is that different from unity as P. Mars speaks about it?
So the part that I'm denying is that like everything connects and like has seemingly this direct connection back to unity, right? Like I think P. Mars has been saying the whole time that we need to have this foundation, and like he wants it to be God to be the foundation, or Jesus to be the foundation, and everything, all the facts of the universe trace back to that, right? And like I
Yeah,
think that the events of the universe are connected to each other through causality, for one thing, but it's not that everything, like it's like links in a chain is how I think about it. It's not that everything has a chain going back to Jesus. Like each link in the chain has a string going to Jesus. That's the part I'm denying.
okay, but the thing is, everything is ultimately connected or not. And if you say or not, then ultimately connections are an illusion.
Okay, I think the word ultimate here kind of has all the lifting.
It just well, the ultimate
Need
is
to
just
be
like the first.
demonstrated.
Ultimate is just like the ontologically first thing.
Which also needs to be demonstrated. But let's move on. Again, from Duke of Bread.
It's
This
literally
time is for you,
necessary
P.
for
Mars.
demonstration,
Why
and
is
they have to
Plato's
demonstrate
idea
it.
of good, which is the ultimate source for everything in his worldview, not an alternative to Christianity? And is there a unifier and unity? As there is a unifier and unity in his idea of good.
Yeah, but Plato has unity, but he doesn't have uh diversity, so distinctions. So he says like everything is ultimately an undifferentiated monad, but then we lose distinctions, and that doesn't ground logic. Plus, the objects, there's no epistemic access to them, and they're causally effete.
Can I ask a follow up here, Mars? Like, you brought up the problem of the one and the many many times, and I've heard tons of precepts bring up the problem of the one and the many. Where can I read about the problem of the one and the many? Right, like where in the literature is that? So I
Um,
can't find anything about it.
Off the top of my head, you could read. There's a paper called the contingency. What is it? The contingency. Let me look this up. The contingency of knowledge and revelatory theism. I think.
Cool.
Let me double
Nice,
check.
thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, the contingency
Another
of
one from
knowledge.
Bigo for you, PMARS. How much Jade Dyer do you watch every day? Well, I'm not really related to the to tonight's thingy.
I'm more like a Darth
And the follow-up.
Dawkins. More like a Darth Dawkins
Yeah.
fan than a Jay Dyer fan.
I was assuming.
For what it's worth, I watch a lot of Darth Dawkins. I watch a lot of Jay. I don't watch a ton of Jay Dyer, right? Like I don't watch his like streams, but I watch all the debates that he does.
I'm preparing to debate him eventually. I need to know more about uh the theology and stuff, but I want to take him. I don't agree with him. But
I look forward to that. That would be awesome.
Okay, another one for you, PMARS. How can you claim this one from also from Upogu? How can you claim God grounds logic if you must presuppose logic in order for God to even be God?
well, the way it works is so like we all have a circular rock bottom. We all bottom out. Everyone bottoms out in a circle. But we would say like, well, the Christian circle. So it's like God's revelation grounds reason. We use reason to investigate history, and then history would identify God's revelation. So it'd be like internally consistent, and it's not arbitrary because the history part is like a publicly accessible fact. We can investigate history and see like God's interacted.
Yeah, but that wasn't really like answering like his question, because his question was, how can you claim God grounds logic if you must presuppose logic in order for God to even be God? So you have to use logic first in order to get to your God.
Well, that's why we don't start with logic. We start with God revealing Himself. So we're not we're not
Point.
maybe we're not reasoning to God. We're reasoning from God's revelation. That's how it works. I don't know if that makes sense, but
So you're not using logic at all.
we use logic, but God is the starting point. So we don't start with logic. We start with God, His revelation, and then we go logic after that.
Okay, I guess Krishan, do you have any any other follow up? Because Upogo wanted your follow up on this one too.
Oh wait,
Thank
sorry,
you.
you asked the question then.
The question was for PMARS, but you wanted also like your input if you have any. How can you claim God grounds logic if you must presuppose logic in order for God to even be God?
Yeah, I guess my one thought here is right, like when people ask for a justification for logic, right? The idea is like, okay, you can't use logic yet until you justify it to me, right? Okay, are you asking for an illogical justification? Like, surely the concept of justification is going to involve intelligibility and logic and whatnot, right? So if you're telling me to not use logic and then to show you why I could use logic, then like, you just can't do that.
No, we have to like we're saying like how do you guarantee it doesn't change? Like what in reality doesn't change, so logic doesn't change. Because everything in reality changes. Except for Jesus.
Thank you. The next question also from Upogu and also for you, PMARS. You're very popular apparently with the questions. Can you prove the Bible is ultimate, absent using sense data?
Well, we don't use sense data to prove things. We're not proving the Bible is sense data. We're saying the Bible is the self-authenticating, self-interpreting starting point. You need a
So
self-authenticating.
you're doing that after you're reading it, right?
Yeah. So the Bible makes claims.
That's using sense data, though. Like reading the Bible.
I use sense data, but
sense data.
But that doesn't mean sense data is the justification just because you use it.
Oh, no, I did. Nobody said here that's the case.
Well, that's what I'm
like,
saying.
how can you do it without using your sense data?
I can't. Obviously.
Oh, okay. That was the question, right?
Well,
So you cannot do it without using your sense data.
Read the Bible? No, but I don't know. Is it about justification? I thought the question was about
Like you cannot prove it is ultimate without using sense data.
So the Bible claims to be ultimate, right? The Bible's making that claim, and then I accept the Bible's claim.
Oh, no, but it was asking how you can prove it. Like a claim
Because
is not a proof.
I would use it the argument I made that if you don't start with the Bible, then you can't prove anything. So the proof for the Bible
No,
is
but
that
you personally, you PMARS, you cannot do that. You cannot even start to say it without actually using sense data first.
okay, that doesn't mean sense data is the justification.
Nobody said that. It just says
Okay, well,
you cannot do it without using your sense data. That's the whole crux of the question.
You can't do anything without sense data. So what?
Well, yeah, that's what I wanted to make sure that we understand each other.
Yeah, I agree. Like anytime we justify anything, we have to use sense data and logic. Yeah.
Okay, another one. In the debate, Christian asked for the explanation of God, and PMARS just restated his conclusion that God is the necessary precondition for intelligibility. Does PMARS understand that X is the necessary precondition of Y, is not an explanation of X, that it is instead an explanation of Y? So what is the explanation of X? Because that was never answered.
Oh, that is the answer. I don't know. He just doesn't like it. Yes. What explains God?
So just to remind like everybody, so there was like a point in the debate where you kind of said that because Christian doesn't have an alternative, then your presupposition is the correct one. And I think what the questioner actually questions in here is the soundness of that statement.
Well, then present an alternative candidate that you can have a non-arbitrary starting point.
Yeah, but that's what he's saying.
But that's his job.
You can't say because
that's his job.
I believe X is true, and if you can't prove that Y is true, then that means automatically that X is true.
That's not the argument, though. The argument is that to even deny an absolute, you'd have to have an absolute to stand on. How can you deny the absolute without an absolute? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, but Christian wasn't denying an absolute.
Okay, if you question, but I've presented Jesus as the absolute. So if you go, well, Jesus isn't the absolute. Well, according to what absolute? So you can't just deny.
I mean, you did claim that. I don't think claims are necessarily proving anything.
Oh, that's not true. That's hilarious that you'd say that. Yeah, claims are evidence. Duh.
I said proofs. I didn't say evidence.
Proofs. Well, the proof is the positive case for the Christian worldview, and then coupled with the impossibility of the contrary.
Let's move on to the next one in that case. Where were you? Okay. So also for you, PMARS from Upogu, you claimed earlier that all individuals who claim to experience revelation are telling the truth. Does this mean that individuals who have committed mass killings because of supposed revelation truly were sent to commit that harm by your Christian God? And if that is the case, explain how those actions comport with Christian values.
Anything your consciousness comes into contact with is a revelation, but we're still causal agents. So what we do is we're responsible for. So God's not responsible for your choice.
Again, another one for you, PMARS. As I said, you're really popular with the questions. Does the Pythagorean theorem transcendentally exist, or is it simply an empirical description of reality? If it's the later, how is this different from the laws of logic?
Does the what? Categorical imperium?
Yeah, Pythagoras theorem. Does it transcendentally exist, or is it simply an empirical description of reality?
Well, I would say that's like so it's an abstraction that's trying to represent reality. So to ground, that's what we're saying about grounding. If it's purely abstract, then it's floating, disconnected from reality, and we couldn't use it to predict reality. If we can use it to predict reality, then it's mapping onto reality. So then it's like, what is it mapping
onto? So it's
onto?
the second one. It's an empirical description of reality.
Yeah.
Okay, so
well, it's an abstract.
If it's the latter, so if it's an empirical description.
Well, it's an abstract representation of something empirical.
Sorry, can you repeat?
I would say it's like I can't remember what is the Pythagorean. Maybe it is conceptual. I can't remember what that one is. Does that one have to do with like geometry?
A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Like
Yeah,
triangles,
yeah.
like square triangles.
Yeah, I mean, if it's used to like make things, then I don't know. I'm not that like a math expert. I don't know what it's used for. But it would like if we use the math in reality to like make a bridge, then we'd have to ground it. You know what I mean? But some math isn't.
But for example, you could also say pi, right? Instead of saying the Pythagoras theorem, you can say pi, right?
Okay.
Which you're dividing the radius, the circumference of a circle to its radius, to its not radius, the other one, whatever. I don't know. It doesn't come to me right now, right? So it's an empirical description of reality, basically, right? You would agree with that, like all these math formulas, for example.
Okay, but not every
They're just
math,
empirical
not every math formula describes reality because some are purely
Oh,
conceptual.
but these ones,
Okay, sure, yeah.
right? Because okay, so and if that's the case, how is it different from the laws of logic? Like why can't we say that the laws of logic are also just empirical descriptions of reality?
Well, but why does reality obey the rule? Right, that's the question. So you,
No, it's just they're not prescriptive; they're descriptive laws. So
but
they're
that's
just
not.
describing. They're not prescribing reality; they're describing
But
reality.
they're not just descriptive. They are prescriptive because the matter obeys them. Matter obeys those principles. So that's prescriptive.
In the same sense, you could say that matter has to obey Pythagoras' theorem, right? So in that case, it wouldn't just simply be an empirical description of reality, and you would be contradicting yourself from earlier.
Okay, we can move on to the next one then.
I'm not really sure what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's move on.
Okay. This one is for you, Christian. What do you determine through factors like logic, reason, and ethics to be derived from in the non-God world?
It was logic, ethics, and what? And truth.
So how do you determine through factors like logic, reason, and ethics can be derived
Where do they come from? Okay.
in a non-God world?
I think reason has like a an evolutionary explanation for why intelligence is confers survival, right? Logic is in my view, this is language that we use to describe the world, right? So if
That's
it's
so stupid.
I don't
That's
like
so
this term
stupid.
grounding, right? But if it's grounded in anything, it would just be the universe, right? And then what was the
This
other
is
one?
like
Ethics.
this is everything
I
he's
think
saying
ethics
is
just
this is
naturally
just hot
comes around
garbage.
from
This is so
humans
dumb.
forming societal groups and interacting with each other, and like the tragedy of the commons and whatnot, and we're just naturally going to have conflict with each other and try and form societies that have rules on how we treat each other, and that's going to be ethics.
You wanted to say something?
Oh, I didn't know I was on. My bad.
Yeah, you're just interrupting. Thank you. So this one is also for you, P. Mars. Do you hold to Scripture alone, or do you recognize the authority of the Church? I mean,
Well, yeah, it'd be
about?
the Scripture is the ultimate authority, and then church tradition would be sort of like a guideline.
And also from the same questioner, he presupps logic. He says, "I presupp logic in the outside world. In order for P. Mars to be coherent, he must presupp logic before God, God and the outside world."
Yeah, I talked about that. Like I approximately start with
Yeah.
my reason, but then God would be the ultimate reason. So
It's kind of like a repeat of a previous question.
Yeah.
This one. Okay, so also he's also asking you, how is it that the Bible is self-interpreting when you have outliers like Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses who come to extremely different conclusions after reading it?
Just sin. I mean, it's like just because a thermometer is broken doesn't mean there's not an objective temperature in the room.
Okay. Another one I'm assuming is for you, P. Mars. Were there people who existed before the Bible was written? If so, how are they capable of understanding the world without the thing which grounds intelligibility?
Well, they would know things, they would just lack ultimate context for their knowledge. So I'm not saying like obviously people know things, but I think it's because they live in God's world.
Okay. And this one is the last question, and it's for both of you. What is an explanation as a philosophical term?
An explanation is something like that allows you to predict the future and explain like how you can predict it that way.
Thank you, Krishan.
I think explanations can be unpacked a few different ways. You could be talking about a causal explanation. You could be talking about like what something's comprised of. In general, like the analogy I've heard that I really like is like an explanation is something that makes something less mysterious.
Okay. I mean, is that a philosophical term? I don't know. Might be. You said mysterious in there, so maybe it is.
I think I heard that
Sorry,
from a
that was-
philosopher. I don't know who, but
Yeah, I mean, it sounds a bit philosophy. It has the word mysterious inside it. So yeah, that's about it. Those were like all the questions that I had for you guys. A lot of questions, to be very honest. So thank you very much, guys, for the debate. It was a pleasure moderating it for you, and have a great rest of the day.
Yeah, thank you. I apologize for my rude behavior.
Mars,
Fine.
all good, man. Appreciate that, though. But thanks for the debate, and thanks to Daniel for moderating, and thanks to everyone for listening.
Good. Thanks to everybody, and I will also stop the stream. And I will also stop the. I mean, if anybody wants to come here, if you want to talk with anybody, somebody I see has like their hands up. I don't know. Up to you guys if you want to. If not, I can just close the stage, and that's it. We can stop here.
Well, I can stick around for a little bit of after show, but probably just stick for like 10 minutes and then take a little break before our show, Daniel.
Yeah, that is true. We have the show in less than an hour, I would say. So yeah, let's just